I became dangerous when I could make myself focus on and do the things I needed to do. And this might surprise you, but the solution was doing nothing. So by the end of this video, you'll know why boredom is the solution to procrastination, overthinking, and burnout. 2 ways I use it to be more focused, creative, self aware, and productive. Starting with what boredom is and how it works. Imagine that you're a part of this study and you're sitting in this big white room. There's only a table in front of you, and there are two things there: your mobile phone and the most boring book ever to exist on this planet. You have 20 minutes to yourself and you can do whatever you want in this room. What would you do in this scenario? You would most probably pick up your phone and just do whatever, scroll. But after these 20 minutes, now the scientists and researchers come and they take away your phone. So now you're left in the room with just the boring book. What will you do now? You might pace around, walk here and there for a couple of minutes, maybe even 10 minutes. But after a while, you will end up picking that book and reading it, even if you hate reading or you hate that book. But why is that the case? I consider boredom to be a state in which you're not distracting yourself and a state in which you're seeking stimulus. Or this distraction can come from outside, like scrolling, music, reading, whatever, or inside. So deliberately fantasizing about something to avoid your own emotions and thoughts. Think of how much time in your day, if any, you spend without distracting yourself. And you might be thinking, why the fuck do I need undistracted time? Here's why. Historically speaking, humans have always had this free time at their disposal. Maybe they were doing some boring, monotonous manual chores, but their mind always had the chance to just wander and ponder on things. And that did and still does something invaluable for our minds. I'm sure that when you were a child, just sitting and thinking about something, someone elder to you came and told you to not sit idly and keep doing something. And trust me, they did not know shit about the power of sitting idly. The way I see mind is, it functions a lot like YouTube. So you come across a video on YouTube which you find to be interesting and you'd like to watch it, but perhaps if you don't have, and maybe even you need to watch it, and perhaps at that moment you don't have the time to watch that video, you put it into watch later. But this act of acting that video into watch later influences the algorithm, and now you see more of similar videos on your feed. So you're commuting to work and you're sitting in the bus and you see two clowns fighting. And seeing that fight, it creates an emotion inside of you. But you cannot address that, you cannot feel that emotion then and there because maybe you're getting late for work. So you put that emotion in the watch later of your mind, that is the subconscious. And from that watch later of your mind, all the stuff that you've put in there and not acknowledged, not felt, not paid attention to, it influences your thoughts, it influences your emotions, and in turn your behavior. This is also why if you're someone who endlessly distracts yourself, you'll notice that if you have even a moment's time with just your thoughts, everything just bubbles up to surface. It may be just before sleep or going for a shower, because you cannot distract yourself while during a shower. That's why shower thoughts is a big thing. When you sit idly, your mind gets the chance to bring it to the surface from your subconscious and process it and make sense of it. People who disappear on the mountains or the Himalayas get a steroid dose of this because there are no distractions on the mountains, and your mind gets all the time to watch the million videos that you put in the watch later, process it, make sense of it, and then release it. But you don't have to disappear on Himalayas to experience all of these benefits. Let me share how I used boredom in my days to become more focused, more productive, self-aware, and happier. There was a study done, I think so, in Carleton University, in which university students were asked to sit idly in a room. But this time they had a switch with them which they can press to electrically shock themselves. A good person, I think so, 60% of students preferred electrically shocking themselves instead of sitting idly with their thoughts and emotions. And that is exactly how I use boredom to become more productive. Here's how. So instance, if I'm writing a script for a YouTube video and I just don't feel like writing it, I'll take a break from it. But the only thing I'm allowed to do and I constrain myself to is sitting in absolute pure boredom, doing nothing. Because boredom is such a stimulation devoid state and is even to some extent painful, it acts like a kick in my butt to go ahead and start writing the script again, because anything is really better than boredom. But if I had picked up my mobile phone and started scrolling videos on YouTube or Instagram, it would have been impossible for me to get back to writing the script, because my mind got a more stimulating and enjoyable alternative. And this is also what happened in the first example that I gave you. This is why you could read that boring ass book. This is how boredom makes me creative. The way I see our mind is that it's like chat GPT. So we get a lot of information, we read books, we listen to podcasts, we have conversations, but all of this information isn't creative, isn't like we haven't created something out of it. But this is my personal experience. When I sit in my boredom, sit idly doing nothing, what happens is all of this information that I accumulated, I now get the chance to run it through the filter of me. So how it makes sense to me, I could apply it in my life. And that is where all of this information becomes more creative for me, if that makes sense. And some of my best creative thoughts and some of my best creative ideas have, in fact, all of them have come from these periods of sitting in boredom, idly doing nothing, just letting my mind wander. This is how boredom makes you more self-aware. Let me ask you this. If you want to get to know a person better, maybe it's a girl or a guy, how do you do that? Do you do that by ignoring them, judging them, not listening to them? Or by being curious, listening, asking questions, and trying to understand them? And that is also how it works with yourself as well. If you want to understand yourself better, become more self-aware, you have to spend time with your own thoughts and emotions. And that is exactly how I became more self-aware, just by being curious, looking at my own thoughts and emotions with that curiosity and trying to understand it instead of judging them, suppressing them, or shunning them away. And this is how boredom increased my focus and attention span. Usually you bombard yourself with hyper stimulating content, and what that does is it decreases your dopamine tolerance. I talk about it in a separate video, but the crux of it is this reduced tolerance makes it difficult for you to enjoy simpler things like reading a book or going for a lone walk. But when you sit idly in boredom, it resets your dopamine tolerance, and now even simple things like reading a book or maybe doing something creatively becomes enjoyable again, and it allows you to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. Boredom is just one tool from an entire system that I created to holistically transform your life. So if you'd like to reach your true potential in 2025, you can click here.